Hey everyone, today's gonna be a topic that I don't normally talk about, because this is one of those stories which just pisses me off with like the victims involved behind it. KingPyn Boxing has been a pretty prominent promoter for quite a while now. They mainly got all the success back when like YouTube boxing really blew up, which to be honest, that was the best possible time to become a promoter. Boxing as a sport was kind of losing like some of its fame and fans with like how big UFC and MMA was getting. So a lot of boxing fans turned over there where like many stars were emerging. And I should mention, for some people it was like just a more like visually engaging sport where all the martial artists could like show off like their best skills possible in this huge mix of like different styles. Plus, with this competition, a lot of people found like a new like martial arts that I never really knew about, like BJJ. So with this discovery, it led to like a lot of like more foreign fighters being like introduced and becoming famous, which is how most underdog stories came about when they came from like a poor area or from a third world country, and now we're like them to be like successful and become famous. People always love seeing like these kind of stories, and to be honest, so do I, because whenever they have like a big win or become like a world champion, you see all the joy in their face, knowing like all the hard work over the years has finally paid off. Even if it's not for money and they just want to be big and like prove themselves, it's always great seeing like this massive event finally play out after like they dreamt for it for so long. This is what led to most fans coming over to UFC because of like their fondness of like the new stars they just love, compared to like the long-lasting boxers that have been fighting for many years. Even though they do have their own fans, there isn't that same kind of like frequency of like new people like coming out from there and blowing up like there is in UFC. So over the years, you would just mainly see like the same name over and over. This is why some people have like that perception of boxing being like an old man sport, especially when it's been like one of the most main viewed sports for over a century now. So it's kind of like understandable why people would see like a new combat sport coming in like take over boxing in terms of like how many people are watching. But with YouTube boxers, it led to like a huge comeback in the sport with all like the new people coming in. And even though some people do joke about like most YouTube fans being like children, this leads to like a lot of attention coming back into the sport where a lot of people like actually became boxing fans, or maybe like picked it up as a hobby for themselves. This is why during the initial blow up, so many YouTubers like jumped in to like make their own fights, just to like capitalize on like sudden success and all the drama surrounding them and another person where the fans wanted them to fight. As much as people look down on YouTubers for like doing boxing fights, they do make a lot of money from it. And on the other hand, mostly like young kids don't really care about like, the integrity of like doing a sport just for money, because they just want to see like their favorite fighter fight their like quote unquote rival. Plus, anyone can really have their own fight, as long as like there's a fan base behind it willing to support it. This is why KingPyn Boxing did so well initially, with the amount of people coming to them to like set up fights. But at the same time, this also led to the downfall of the promotion, because quite recently, they've actually been alleged of like holding back money for fighters and staff, which is annoying to see, because these people, especially the fighters, really don't deserve to have like the money held back after like they worked so hard. And although the promoter did plan it, it's the people behind it and fighters that helped actually make it, so without them, it wouldn't even like exist in the first place. It's really awful as well because like most of the fighters aren't really like popular or big, so it just feels like the promoter thinks like they shouldn't pay them because like nothing will happen, since they don't really have like a huge fan base either. I should also clarify now that some of these people haven't even been paid for like the fights they've done like over a year ago. So to me it's mind blowing that after all that time, they still somehow like haven't received the money like they rightfully deserve. And from what I've read, the company's been like unresponsive to people asking when they're gonna get paid, which in my mind is like even worse because they don't even know if they will get paid. So as of now, it might take like an unimaginably long time. Added on top of the fact like they've already done the fight and been waiting for the money in the first place. At the very least, they could have given like a possible date, which even though isn't the best, it would be better than keeping people waiting forever. To be honest, this promoter has been a mess in general, because they went bankrupt like a while ago during one of the semi-finals where it looked like they were finished and they wouldn't be doing any more boxing fights. Thankfully, the zone swooped in to like help host the fights for them, so at the very least the fighters who like worked so hard to get them in the first place, they at least know like all their hard effort didn't go to waste. I also want to bring one person like related to this drama, that being Wade Plem, who's a combat sport commentator and also runs the YouTube channel The Wade Concept, who's been harassed by a lot of people because they believe like he's one of the main people behind the promotion. But the problem is that he isn't, and he himself hasn't even been paid for the fights he's attended to and commentated for. So he's just been attacked over and over by fans, believing like he's the reason like why people's money are being held back, even though he himself doesn't have any control over it. He addressed all of this in a recent video he released, a video that he felt like he was forced to make because of like all the backlash coming towards him. And personally, I just feel really bad for him, not just because he's like one of the victims in this, but also because he stayed with like KingPyn for quite a while now, which is what led to a lot of people believing like he was one of the main people behind it, even though he was just on the same level as the staff and fighters behind it. One part of the video I want to talk about is the fights in his contract that he signed, where he broke it down and explained it.
KingPyn is allegedly not paid some of their fighters / event staff, and the company is being unresponsive, multiple sources tell Happy Punch. That's correct. But to get to that point, we have to go all the way back, at least for me, to where this started. So I signed a contract to work with KingPyn as a commentator. Somehow, By the way, that led to me being Mr. KingPyn, and this is why I have to make this video, because I think some of the community thinks I won't address things that in some way have to do with the company I'm working with, even though I have always done that. Did that with Misfits, did that with Creator Clash, did that with Showstar. I'm doing that now. I've remained transparent with you guys, and I always will be. What I'm not going to do is talk about personal people at KingPyn, because they're not public figures, and I'm not about to put them online as public figures, but I signed a contract to commentate 3 events for KingPyn. And not only me, but Sensei, Face Sensei, my partner on the breakdown, did as well. Those contracts, from the moment the first event started, were broken by KingPyn. I'll speak on my money. I'm not going to speak on Face Sensei's money because that's his business, and I'm not going to put out my brother's business in public. But what I will say is I was owed, over the 3 events, $75,000. That was supposed to be what I was paid. And in my contract, I will read it word for word for you guys. In consideration of provision of services, KingPyn shall pay talent the following. Event 1, quarterfinal of the tournament, the sum of $25,000, the fee. The fee shall be payable in 2 equal installments. Installments is spelled wrong, so I probably should have seen that there was one L missing and realized that KingPyn was going to take it themselves. 50% payable 2 weeks before the event, and 50% payable within 7 days after event 1 of provision of services on receipt of valid invoice. I understand me exposing the fee I was owed to do this event is probably not a great business move, but again, my integrity's on the line, and that number is what I was owed. That number, $25,000, was not paid to me until the week of the second event. Matter of fact, a couple of days before the second event.
Even though he said the main goal of the video was him to defend himself, I still think he has the right to complain about how they've been holding back money for him as well. Especially when he broke the rules and came really late, due by the second event, which probably made the whole process more confusing. I also want to take this moment to commend Wade, because he then explains how he paid a friend that he felt compelled to give money to, because he dragged him into this, even though he's completely innocent.
I'll have to bring this up again. I'm not going to speak on the specifics of Face Sensei, but why Face Sensei was not paid. To this day, Face Sensei has not been paid the amount of money he was owed for the first event. That is a fact. It has not happened. I took from that money I was paid, that $25,000, I took that and gave my brother what he was owed out of my paycheck because I felt responsible for involving him in this bullshit. And as a man, I stood there 10 toes down, understanding I was responsible for him even being a part of KingPyn in the first place. I was the one that pushed him toward it. I was the one that wanted him to be a part there with me. I was the one that wanted the breakdown there. It was my responsibility, and I failed him. To this day, Face Sensei or myself have not been reimbursed for that amount of money that he was owed and never paid.
I also respect him for another part of the video, where he talks about how he feels like he was responsible for the massive loss of the first event, even though I don't believe he's at fault for this at all.
They lost a substantial amount of money, to the tune of, from what I've heard, $3 to $4 million on the first event. A massive, massive casualty. Because yes, they've overpaid and undersold with the fighters. Myself, I can take some responsibility there. I tried my best to promote that first card and the second. Maybe I didn't do as good a job as I should have. That's on me. But what I'm not going to do is stand here and act like it was anybody's fault but the promotion for not communicating and having us all sit out here in the sun and bake under our own fan bases, our own community, because we don't have answers to give them. I didn't have answers to give my people because I didn't know what was going on for months and months at a time. Continuing, even after the first event, to follow up with Mr. KingPyn about specific things like payment. The dates for the second event, which got moved back and again, weren't communicated to us until later on. Flights not being booked for the second event. I paid for myself to fly to England and to Dublin to create content for KingPyn 2. I took that responsibility upon myself. I said, you know what? I'm going to be the best damn content creator I can be, best commentator I can be, cover these guys behind the scenes, go to their gyms, pay for the Airbnb, pay for the flight, pay for all the equipment, bring it out myself, bring my team with me so that we can try to make this second event better and bigger than the first so that that doesn't happen again. I came out early, so fair play. That's on me. But again, there was no schedule for flights had I not booked myself to come out there. If I didn't fly to England and then to Dublin, Ireland, I don't know if I would have even been on the second card because Sensei never got his flights together. They never reached out to Sensei to finally finalize his flights. He was supposed to be there, but because they waited so long to say anything about, hey, let's book flights. Let's get things scheduled. Let's get you a hotel room. They couldn't even get Sensei to the event. And again, the people trying to promote this event, trying to go on camera, put on a brave face and say, hey, let's get through this thing and let's make it the best we can. And by the way, it got to fight week and we didn't even know if we were going to stay. I had a video ready during fight week to drop all this back then. You can ask my editor, Christian, but we didn't put it out because we tried, again, to remain professional, handle these things professionally and privately. Flat out lack of communication up until fight week and during fight week to if the fight was even going to happen. I was having to look online for potential flights that I was going to have to book for myself and Christian back home because we didn't know if we were even going to work that Saturday. It's just
regardless of how much money the first event lost, it's still up to KingPyn to make sure like everyone's get paid. Later on in the video, he talks about like the amount of flights he had from America to UA to go to the fighters and like interview them, as well as making some like behind the scenes content just for the event to make sure it would turn out the best it could possibly be. And all this commitment purely came from his desire to do the best job he could because he really wanted it to like turn out great, which is why it's so heartbreaking seeing like all the events fall out and seeing him as a person blamed for this. But funnily enough, halfway through the video, he gets called by someone from KingPyn telling him like everyone was going to get paid. I'm not sure if this was a bit, because it does feel like way too lucky for someone to actually call him halfway through the video and tell him this. But I do believe like someone actually did call him to tell him that.
Here he is now. Hello. Just got off the phone with KingPyn. Called me during the middle of my video, probably because I spoke about going public with stuff that's happened behind the scenes. It's crazy that it takes this kind of desperate reach out to get any sort of communication back. But I'm just going to say what was told to me there, and then we're going to move on with what I had to say. But as far as fighter pay, I was just told on this phone here, I was given word. I was given the head of KingPyn's word that people will be paid. And the words right now, to be honest, don't mean a ton to me. But for those that are watching, I was given a promise that everyone would be paid. I personally have no idea if that's going to happen because right now they're very late on payments from the second event. And from the first event, like I said just a second ago, Faye Sensei still not been paid. So they also said that there's some issues with the payment and it's coming, but they haven't actually got it yet. So they can't pay out until they have money. Now, why they don't have that money or why it's not here yet, I don't really have the answers for. Again, that to me is not good business.
Despite what he said, I am still glad like they made like some slight promise, like telling everyone they're gonna get paid, because they did break the long silence they had of like not talking to people when they asked like where the money was. Of course, a short off-screen phone call isn't gonna guarantee that, but I'm still glad like at least someone talked to them, and I do think Wade is like the best person to like discuss this with them. People could also make the argument like they purely did this to like relieve some of the heat they were getting from this news, and Wade is one of the biggest people discussing this. I can see why some people aren't like entirely happy about this answer, because it's not really concrete. So right now it might take a bit longer, especially like when the reason was like they didn't have enough money, which to me does sound like a bit made up. Of course, I do absolutely hope everyone gets paid, because no one deserves to wait this long to get their money. And again, I just hope all the hate going towards Wade just stops, because he's like one of the least people who deserves it right now. Especially when he was the one that put in the most effort, and he just wanted it to like turn out great. But that's all I have to say. So hopefully you guys the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.